to notice the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Someone has joined us. Tom and Tara have joined us. I think I remember who they are. Did you folks used to join us down the street?
There you go.
I'm sorry. We used to join you way back when you first started.
Yes, I remember.
Well, you were at Tamara's office, and then when you moved over to Matt's for a while, and we had our son, and it became more difficult.
Well, I'm glad you joined this morning. It's a nice surprise. Just so you know, what you see me wearing, it just helps me see a little better. My vision has gotten quite poor, so I'm not watching Bugs Bunny reruns behind you. How has your Dhamma practice been? Have you been keeping it up?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. What was that?
Have you been keeping up with your Dhamma practice, with your meditation?
I have. You know, it ebbs and flows with the course of my life, but yeah. I have been keeping it up as much as I can. Yeah,
good. How about you, Tom? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. I haven't been keeping up my practice as much as I would like, but trying to reestablish it here. So.
Yeah, well, this is it's a good time to rejoin us. We're just beginning a study of a book called the Dhammapada, which is very basic but very deep and profound teaching. So I think you'll find a lot of benefit from it. And Tom has joined us as well. Let me just show you who's here. I think this will work. This is our in-house Sangha. Oh. Were you able to see that?
Yeah.
Good. All right, let's get started. So this is the second week, second class, second chapter of the Dhammapada, which is a 26-chapter volume in the a set of books called the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is part of the Sutta Pitaka. Last week we started it, and each chapter, you'll see as we develop this, each chapter informs the next chapter, and the next chapter builds on that. And so we started this study, and you also see where this ultimately culminates in a description of the importance of the Eightfold Path. So we began our study last week with the Buddhist teaching us that the quality of the mind governs all. The quality of the mind, meaning what we hold in mind, whether it's right view or wrong view, the quality of our mind is determined by what we're holding in mind. And if it relates to developing right view, our lives and our understanding of ourselves will continually move towards that profound understanding of an awakened human being. If we continue in ignorance, we'll simply continue in ignorance. And that really is it's the choice that every human being makes, even though they're not aware of it. But it is it's Occam's razor. It's the fine point that a wise Dhamma practitioner must engage in, either recognizing and abandoning ignorance or not. And if we're not doing it, we're not practicing the Dhamma. And that relates to what we hold in mind and how mind governs all. And now you'll see how this particular chapter, the Buddha is encouraging his students towards the benefits of right mindfulness. And he explains that. We understand from our other studies and our understanding of the Dhamma that when the Buddha is talking about mindfulness, he's not talking about a generalized mindfulness that is so popular today. Not that there's right or wrong, it's just something different. It's not significant to the Dhamma that we're mindful when we're washing our dishes or whatever else we might be doing, although that's helpful. What's important to be mindful of while we're washing the dishes is the Eightfold Path. Because if we're mindful of just washing the dishes, what we're doing is developing mindfulness of washing the dishes. There's no relation to Four Noble Truths and understanding. So that type of mindfulness, of being mindful of you're walking. There's no such thing as that the Buddha teaches as meditative walking. There's no meditation practice that involves walking. It always involves sitting. But to be mindful of each step is an outcome of right mindfulness. So right mindfulness begins its establishment in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is also the establishment of jhana meditation. And I'll get a little bit more into that. The Appamadavagga is what this chapter is called. The Buddha's words. Mindfulness is the path to cessation. Like last week's class, the first sentence tells you what this is all about. Mindfulness is the path to cessation. Of course, we have to understand the context to understand what that line means. If you didn't understand the context, cessation of what? And also remember, these aren't meant to be complete teachings. It is understood that people are participating in the Sangha. They're hearing the Buddha's words. They're hearing Sariputta, Moggallana, and other teachers that are explaining what cessation we're looking for. Cessation from ignorance of 4 noble truths is what we're looking for. Mindfulness is the path to that cessation. Those mindful do not suffer. Those mindful have gone beyond suffering. So if you're wondering if your mindfulness practice is actually bearing fruit, is it taking you there? Is it taking you to the path to the place where you no longer are suffering? If it's not, you have the wrong mindfulness practice. Clearly knowing the excellence of mindfulness, the wise exulting in mindfulness, and the refuge of noble ones. What's the refuge of noble ones? The refuge of noble ones is the 4 noble truths, and specifically the Eightfold Path. Again, you have to understand what the Buddha taught to not go grasping after something that's outside of 4 noble truths. But they're noble because they relate to the Dhamma. Just to clarify what I just said, it is true that Brett's wearing a blue shirt, if he really is. That truth is unimportant, except in this immediate reality. It does me no good to say, well, to see Brett's wearing a blue shirt, but I'll see orange because I like orange. That's just a confused mind. But the truth of Brett's blue shirt is completely insignificant to 4 noble truths, is it? Because it doesn't relate to the Dhamma. Whether I think Brett's shirt is blue or not is completely irrelevant, or that the sky is blue, or my dog is whatever he is. Has no bearing. The 4 noble truths bear on the Dhamma, and nothing else does. And then anytime we try to adapt, accommodate, or embellish these 4 truths, we lose the Dhamma. The Buddha continues. The wise ones, established in jhana, steadfast in the heartwood. The heartwood is always the Eightfold Path. They alone are released. Freedom beyond compare. And jhana meditation is established in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Glorious are those energetic, pure, discerning rightly, restrained, always mindful. Mindful of right effort, a disciple of the heartwood. The wise are an island unto themselves that no flood can overwhelm. The island unto themselves doesn't mean that we're isolated from the world. It means that we have developed within our own mind our own profound understanding of reality. And that establishes us as an island. There's nothing in the world now that can affect me, even though for the first time in my life, and I can tell you this from personal experience, I'm actually living my life. And isn't that quite a paradox? If we really want to be calm and peaceful and understand safety as much as we can within this world we live in, we have to actually be engaged in the Dhamma. Fabricated philosophies and fabricated religions and fabricated lineages take you out of that, don't they? Because you're living in fabrication. You're not living in the world. So you haven't established understanding or even a measure of safety in the world. You've only ignored the world. Ignorance of 4 noble truths. And this is what a fabrication does for us. It doesn't change a fabricated view of ourselves in relation to the world. Doesn't change the world at all. In fact, you could say it's an aspect of fabricated wishful thinking. The only thing it changes is my perception of the world, that part of the 5 clinging aggregates that maintains ignorance. The Buddha's Dhamma, right mindfulness, resting in jhana meditation, develops the mind to the point where it can hold in mind, that's concentration, that's jhana, the principles of the Eightfold Path, and so live your life in peaceful calm from a profound understanding of what's occurring right now. what's occurring right now. And when we know that, when we truly understand that, our minds cease reacting and seek grasping after any other type of reality, because there's no need for it. We understand, just to use a slightly dramatic phrase, we know we've come home. We know we've arrived. And how do we know it? We know it from experience. We know it from recognizing it through the practice itself. It's the practice itself. It's the heart root of the Dhamma that informs the Dhamma and shows us whether it's working or not. Of course, we all know it works. The Buddha continues, the foolish and ignorant crave mindlessness. I got to clarify that too, because I actually had a relatively long time member, and this is going back about 4 or 5 years ago, left the Dhamma and left our Sangha because they objected so much to the use of the word fool. We had a conversation about it, and I could not explain to them, notice I'm not, that the Buddha is not saying that individual human beings are foolish in the context of the Dhamma. You're foolish in relation to that. You're a fool because you don't understand. You're a fool because your mind, as it states here, your mind is rooted in ignorance. And so that is foolish in the context of our Sangha, to be talking about someone who's living in the world, knows of the Dhamma, but refuses to develop it for whatever reason. That's a fool. And that's the right word to use. I don't want to be a fool. I'm not calling you a fool or anybody else. I would be a fool if I understand the Dhamma and turn my back on it. And I would only continue my own ignorance. Let me just read it again. The foolish and the ignorant crave mindlessness. Just to comment on that last. The Buddha teaches refined mindfulness. You often hear me refer to it that way. That means mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. Holding in mind anything else that would distract or embellish the Eightfold Path is mindlessness. Of course, everything is mindful. I lived the extreme life of a drug and alcohol addict for many years. It almost killed me twice. The best understanding I have of mindfulness is that type of mindfulness that kept in mind the next drink for me or the next drug. That's mindfulness, holding in mind. Holding in mind, mindfulness means to recollect and to hold in mind. For many, many years of my life, the predominant thing that I held in mind was a next drink or a drug. And so mindfulness alone is often debilitating, including that example. But the same example would be holding in mind the fight I think I'm going to have at work tomorrow with my boss. That's mindlessness. I'm not there. I don't even know what's going to occur. Or holding in mind the red Ferrari that I'm going to pick up tomorrow morning. I'm not. That's mindlessness. Why? Even though it's true that tomorrow morning I'm picking up a red Ferrari. Did I say red before? It was going to be red. In this moment, I've lost my mind over tomorrow. And I'm not saying a passing thought or a reminder, don't forget to get up early so you can go get it. But to be distracted, be obsessed with, to spend today thinking about tomorrow. That's mindlessness, even though technically it's holding in mind something. So mindlessness is holding in mind, as a Dhamma practitioner, anything that distracts away from the Eightfold Path. The wise know this one treasure, meaning holding in mind the Eightfold Path. Refrain from mindlessness. Refrain from sensual pleasure. Only those established in Jhana and refined mindfulness attain lasting calm. Only those. The wise, looking down from the mountaintop of wisdom, having abandoned mindlessness, established in mindfulness, this peaceful sage observes the foolish and the suffering multitude. From that standpoint, you can see this. So the Buddha's teaching, in order to have that perspective of really what's occurring in the world, really to have the perspective of reality, you have to develop this refined mindfulness. And again, by saying you have to, is not saying you must. One of the great things about the Buddha's Dhamma, what was most appealing to me, is the ultimate freedom, the ultimate liberation from all fabrications that are contained and developed through right effort and right view. Again, there's a seeming paradox to those who would a mind rooted in ignorance is always grasping after more and doesn't like anything that would limit its grasp. And that's the primary objection that people have to when they first come to the Dhamma and misunderstand the ramifications. It sounds like I got to give up everything. It sounds like I got to give up everything about myself and all of my views. No, you have to give up everything that is false about a self. And by doing that, by recognizing and abandoning all that is false, all that is fabricated, you gently enter reality for the first time. And of course, even that is a relative term in the world, because all things are real, aren't they? They're part of the world. So what we're talking about is the reality of my own quality of mind. Am I thinking clearly? That's the Buddha's Dhamma. Am I thinking clearly? Am I seeing this through the lens of Four Noble Truths? And that's where liberation resides. Yes?
Does that speak to the need to be part of Sangha and to strengthen your practice? Because without that, you can start tweaking it along the way. So you think it's based on what it is, but it really isn't. You're making accommodation. So that's where I think the three jewels, it's not this nice thought, it's really a necessity.
Yeah. It's so well said. The Buddha always emphasized the importance of the Sangha, literally saying it can't be done without a well-focused, well-informed Sangha. You can't develop the Dhamma. Many people argue that. As David was talking, I was thinking about these individual Buddhist dharmas that have developed about, and there's a lot of legend about, there's a lot of encouragement to remove yourself from the world and isolate yourself. Go live in a cave for 12 years, and you'll gain some understanding and then come out of that. And there's Buddhist history and religious history is rife with those types of, just to use the word, prophets that have removed themselves, isolated themselves, sat off and on in meditation for sometimes dozens of years. And without the feedback of the Dhamma and the Sangha, develop their own view of the world. And they come down and start teaching. And that's fine. That's all well and good. But it has nothing to do with the Dhamma. The Dhamma, it's almost like polishing a gem. And the Sangha is the sandpaper that's doing that. We see it here all the time, every class. We are rubbing each other's fabrications away simply by our interaction and the reflection of truth in a well-informed and well-focused Sangha. It cannot be done that way.
Excuse me, John.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I'm sorry. I wanted to be able to say goodbye because we have to go. But it was so nice to see you. And I hope we get to see you again on a Zoom session. Thank you so much for this and for your words of wisdom.
It's great to see you both again.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Let me get back to this. The Buddha continues, mindful among the mindless, awake among those asleep, the wise advance like a swift horse. By mindfulness is one exalted. Mindfulness is always praised by the wise, mindlessness always despised. The Dhamma practitioner who delights in mindfulness and is fearful of mindlessness advances like fire burning away all fetters. The Dhamma practitioner who delights in mindfulness and is fearful of mindlessness will not lose the way. It's mindfulness that keeps us focused. They are close to release. Those that don't, they're maintaining this mindfulness are close to release. So last week we talked about how mind governs all. This week we're talking about the importance of what we hold in mind to develop that type of mindfulness. Let's go online first and see Tom, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Thank you, John. Great to, I'm trying to rearrange my weekends a little bit so I can spend this time with you and with the rest of the Sangha. It's always a good influence on my life. a good chance to reflect. So it's sometimes a bit difficult with Saturdays, and because it's the middle of the day here. But definitely worth it every time I'm able to do that. So thank you very much for sharing. I found it obviously a great reminder as usual. There was one thing I just wanted to ask you. So, you talked a little bit about this idea that, a lot of the sort of mindfulness movement is based around, being mindful when you're washing the dishes or all of these things, right? Mindful eating a raisin or whatever. But you said, those activities kind of are only effective as mindfulness practices, like real mindfulness practices, if you're mindful of the Eightfold Path, and you have that in mind. So just wondering, because a big part of my life now, I think, especially maybe for other people, especially in light of COVID, is going for walks, in local parks or wherever, just to get out of the house. So we're doing a lot more things outdoors, and so I'm finding the opportunity a lot more. I'm trying to go for a walk every day now, just in nature. How would you approach that kind of activity? When you sort of, when you talk about doing it while being mindful of the Eightfold Path, how can those kinds of activities kind of actually still support your practice, even if they're not a substitute for, just sitting like we do? How do you think those kinds of activities can support your practice nonetheless?
Yes, what a great question, Tom. Thank you, and thanks for joining. The only way that ongoing life can be a benefit is that ongoing life, that moment by moment life, is framed by the Eightfold Path. And so it doesn't mean that we should be walking around trying to find out, well, is right speech here or is it right? That's not it. It's on our cushion that we begin to establish the concentration that's necessary to carry out first the intellectual understanding of what the Eightfold Path is, and then apply it appropriately in our moment by moment life. So getting back to that, it's great to go out and take a walk. The walk is even better when we do it from the refined mindfulness developed through the Eightfold Path. So I'm trying to clarify the point that I think we get stuck in, is that, okay, when I go out, I'm going out to take a walk, I need to be mindful of walking. That's true, you should be. You don't want to be walking around thinking you're riding your bicycle. That's insane, isn't it? So we want to be mindful, aware of what we're doing. But the Dhamma practitioner is aware of what they're doing from the perspective gained through the Eightfold Path. In other words, if I decide I'm going to take a walk and I look outside and it's nice and sunny, so I go down to there's a towpath right down here. So I go down to the towpath and I start walking and it rains. And as soon as it starts raining, I start screaming and cursing and everything else. Well, I've lost my mind. But the wise Dhamma practitioner will simply just keep walking. They won't lose their mind. They may decide that they don't want to walk in the rain, but none of it will be a disappointment. It will simply be what's occurring in the moment. Does that clarify?
Yeah, I think so. So you're still kind of applying the principles of mind. You're really observing your mind in whatever activity you're doing, rather than, as we say, like observing the raisin or whatever, like they do in those mindfulness activities. It's really, that's not the point. It's saying, enjoy the activity for what it is, be there in the moment for what it is, and then notice as much as you possibly can in that type of activity. Try to notice how your mind pulls you away to thinking about tomorrow or worrying about the past or
Yes.
whatever.
Right? The Buddha teaches that the profound right view is knowing stress, knowing the continuation of stress, and knowing the cessation of stress.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, if there is, as you're taking your walk in the park, if there is no stress, and because you have developed the Eightfold Path, your mind is simply liberated. In other words, it doesn't have to be stressed to practice the Dhamma. But if it does start raining, you recognize this is stress. The the cause of stress would be my reacting to it, wanting the sun to still be there. But since I understand it, and again, you might not necessarily go through the process of, oh, it's raining, so this is stress. The wise Dhamma practitioner, the one that has developed the Dhamma, will simply remain calm and at peace, no matter what's occurring.
Got it.
So it's not external situations. It's the internal wherewithal that we bring to external situations, no matter what they are. And that makes even a walk in the park even more significant, or maybe significant for the first time, because we're actually doing it. We're not in the park thinking about washing the dishes or tomorrow's Ferrari. We're actually
yeah.
You bring up such an important point. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Mary, sure.
Again, back to the walk in the park and doing the dishes, right? Holding the equal path in mind would be then to be putting an end to fabrication, like
Yeah.
right? And that's it comes down to that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The fabrication and the example I gave would be, damn it, it's raining. There's the reaction. I got to think. Tom mentioned eating a raisin. He reminded me of this brutal experience I had within the. It was brutal. I'm trying to think. I remember where it was. I won't say where it was. But we did a mindfulness practice with kumquats, and we had to take 5 minutes to eat the kumquat. It was the biggest waste of time I ever had. I couldn't. It made no sense. It wasn't teaching me anything, but take a bite. The instructions were feel the whatever it was, feel the sweetness of it, and taste this, taste that. What could be more eye-making than overemphasizing the simple act of eating a kumquat? It was those kind of experiences that at least got me thinking, maybe this isn't really something that a Buddha would have taught. I mean, can you imagine coming here on a Saturday, we got a bowl of kumquats, and that's our teaching? I mean, honestly, it might, especially if you like kumquats, it would sound pleasant. And I don't think I've ever eaten another kumquat. Mary, how are you this morning?
Hi, good morning, John. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
Good to hear. Happy to hear.
One of the things that impressed me early on in my practice, and certainly was followed up by some really meaningful experiences on retreat, was we don't even realize that we're adding all these layers to our life and adding all these expectations, and we're so action oriented, and we think that that's the right thing to do. We're becoming a family, we're becoming whatever, I think we put all those things forward. And I think that what strikes me is that this practice is really a practice of the mind, and it's about taking away. So that often it's the omission. So using the example of going out on the walk, it's the omission of the distraction, the 9 things I have to do. You shouldn't be taking a walk. I better cut this short by 10 minutes because I just thought of something else I have to do. So it's the ability to remove the mindlessness, and what you're left with is the realization that you were born perfect, right? You were born in a way that was mindful and just at peace with the universe, if you will. I don't mean to sound anyway, I just feel like we add these layers to our lives, and then as adults we discover something like this, and it's the liberation of realizing that it's the removal of all these things that are distractions and take us away from mindfulness, take us away from the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. And that's less of an action than I need to do this to better my life, or I need to do this for my family, or these other things. So it's a little bit of the opposite of how we're raised in our cultures. And so when I think about the kumquat example, that's thinking about something outside your body, right? That's not mindfulness. mindfulness is the absence of all the distractions of the world, and the ability to have a clear right view, which is the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, and then, et cetera, through the Eightfold Path. And, I think sometimes we're looking for an answer, but as with many things in the Buddhist teaching, it's the opposite. Like it's the negative to the positive. It's the taking away versus adding on. It's the simplicity of getting back to what is most basic and human and is with you all the time, right? So it's already there with you, whatever we're seeking, and it's our ability to sort of clean it up and really hold ourselves accountable to the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. I guess that's all I wanted to say, John, but thank you. This is great teaching.
Oh, outstanding. Well said, Mary. Will you please say hello to your sisters and Bonnie when you talk to them?
I will.
Thanks. I have to ask you to be a little bit brief because I have my ride is coming in 25 minutes. So, but please say what you need to say too. David, how are you? Thank you, David. You can say I got time. Jen, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good.
I feel like this Mary kind of hit it on the head. I just think that when you first intellectually hear the phrase, hold in mind the Eightfold Path, you can get caught up in what that really means. And when you first begin meditating, I think you've said many times, John, that, the idea of meditation is the purpose when you sit down to meditate isn't that you have to calm your mind. It's that calming your mind will happen as you practice meditation. And I think one of the first things that we notice is how much thinking we do. We take for granted that we can control our minds. And we don't realize that we have 10 or 15 different streams. Well, depending, hundreds of different streams could be going on at the same time in our minds. And so the idea of holding in mind the Eightfold Path seems like it would require so much mental real estate that we couldn't actually do other things. But we can hold in mind the Eightfold Path and still experience our life. So we can still be mindful of walking while we're holding in mind the Eightfold Path. In fact, we will be better at it. So, which is what I think everybody else said. So I'm good.
No, again, beautifully said, and I would say that it's the only way we can actually experience our life because we're seeing it clearly. Thanks, Jim. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you and take note of the
Thank you. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Okay, we don't have to rush through this.
You're right. Yeah. So number one was mind governs all. Number two here is mindfulness is key to that. Well, can't wait for the rest.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much.
I didn't mean to intimidate everybody away from me. Michael, save us.
Well, you're asking one
We'll ask you that. I really, actually, I like the whole idea of an individual being an island unto themselves. And the way I perceive that is to, that's
I owned unto yourself, and you also that the wise going down from that mountaintop, and you're enchanted ashhead, and understood that whole idea of realization, and you're able to create that disenchanted ashhead. And obviously, understanding the nature of practice there.
Yeah.
Establishing
That's good.
That's why I find from that, I find this like it's a pretty aware state. Obviously,
A pretty rare state?
no, a pretty aware.
Oh, yeah.
We that here to be grounded, right?
Yep.
Be grounded to
Well said, my friend. Thank you. Hello, Becky.
Hello. Yeah, I like, there's two phrases in this sutta that I wrote down because they spoke to me. And mindful among the mindless, awake among those asleep.
Yeah,
The wise advance like a swift horse. And to echo what Michael said, mindful of right effort, a disciple of heartwood, the wise are an island unto themselves, that no flood can overwhelm.
That's beautiful.
So as a result of thinking of those two phrases, I wrote another haiku.
Oh, all right.
Strengthen discernment. Others will remain at war. World peace will be yours.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Hello, Tim. Did you get a haircut?
No, I did not.
Oh.
Just woke up with this. My wife might have done it.
No, that's why I hesitated a little bit.
I just want to start by saying that I am okay. I truly am. But that being said, the Appamadavagga thing around Appamadavagga seems like a precursor. It is. I'm glad you stood up there. 2 to 3 months ago.
Yep.
Because I wrote down something that I've been talking to others about and also been pondering about. That is that all that arises passes away today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Here, right here, on Earth, in our galaxy and universe, everyone, past, present, and future, all that arises passes. This profound realization of anicca. This is the profound realization of agitation of this realization of sex, the fabricated non-self, resulting in dukkha. Applying mindfulness, establishing jhana, reinforces the acceptance of life as it is, and the application of the heart, living moment by moment, a kind of peaceful mind. So this, to me, is the precursor to the marks of existence.
Yep.
And so it's almost just take this at face value. And the blindness in the sutra that really is the truth of the matter is the steadfast in the heart.
Yeah. That's right.
So that's all I have to say. It's just a great clip note to bring us back to the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the purpose of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well said too. I keep saying that a lot. Really. It shows a very, very clear understanding of how to apply this, and that's kind of what the Dhammapada is about. That we have a basic understanding, and the Dhammapada, in a very direct way, fine-tunes that understanding, doesn't it? Takes some mind to it. Thank you. Adam, good to see you.
Good to be here. Good to see all of you as well. Hopefully this is a relatively quick question, but there are 2 terms that really resonated with me second one was restraint. And discernment, I think I could think about it some more, but restraint puzzled me a little bit. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more or clarify what is meant by restraint.
Yes.
In the context of mindfulness.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's a key to the Dhamma. As you continue to join us, you'll hear me refer to that. It takes refined mindfulness, resting in jhana, resting in a well-concentrated mind, to be able to practice restraint. When you think about that, if in this moment my mind is grasping after my tomorrow's red Ferrari, I've lost my mind, but a well-concentrated mind can recognize that's where I'm going and practice wise restraint and keep my mind in the present moment. So that's the ultimate application of wise restraint. The Buddha's Dhamma can only be practiced in life as life occurs. In other words, our mind has to be united in its body so that it can actually practice the ongoing process of recognizing and abandoning all fabricated views and the manifestations of that. That takes restraint. So as the red Ferrari is coming up in my mind, I'm practicing concentration and I realize I'm not there yet. That's wise restraint. And that's a very almost conceptual application of it, but it's the essence of Dhamma practice. If you go on the website and did a web search on, not a web search, a search in the search box on wise restraint, you'll see a whole series of articles on how important that is. But it's basic Dhamma. It's Dhamma resting in a well-concentrated mind that has developed enough of the right view to practice that restraint in this moment. Does that answer your question?
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's good.
Right?
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to expand on that just a
I
bit?
knew you were going to ask me that. I get it, but and so the word restraint. So I feel like it has like this idea of willpower with
Yeah,
it.
that's what I forgot on that one.
Yeah, and it's not because willpower is lacking that mindfulness and the gentleness
Yes.
of allowing for what is arising within you, but of recognizing that what is arising within you is not you, and letting it go is different than, recognizing that. Yeah, exactly. Recognizing that, I really want to go to the fridge right now and I already had dinner. Because that's what my experience.
That's a better example. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I really, you're not allowed to go to the fridge. You already had dinner, that's willpower. But, okay, this is not me, this is not mine, it's not who I am. Let me just breathe, come back to what I'm doing, and allow that to pass away. Know that it's impermanent, allow it to pass away. And that's a gentle restraint.
Wise restraint.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you, Jen. That was outstanding. Jen is one of our teachers, too. Two of our teachers are here, Ram and Jen. And Jen will be teaching our Saturday class in 2 weeks, right? Looking forward to that. So as you continue to come to class, you'll understand even on a much deeper level how important that concept is. But you'll get it. It's key to it. Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Kevin, how are you?
What Adam said, it was along the lines of what I was thinking about this law and about hold on restraint. Really, one way that I talked about, and we talked about in the past, is really restraint of the six tendencies. And really just not being taken away by all these beauty of the world, the ugliness of the moment, just in a way to restrain from eye-making from everything that we might encounter in the world. And then it makes me think of the teaching of Bahia. When you're on that walk, you can take a walk and you can go to the walk. What is seen is only as what is seen, what is heard is what is heard. You don't have to eye-make over everything you do. It's okay to take that walk.
Thank you, Kevin. It really is amazing. I said that we have two of our teachers here, Jen and Ram, but you all are teachers. I mean, every one of you. It's really amazing. And even by your questions, Adam, you're teaching us too. This is how a Sangha should be. David was referring. This is a well-focused, well-informed Sangha. We're just starting this program, Adam, but I don't know that we have actually implemented it, but people that come in new, we offer a 3-class over 3-week kind of an introductory training. So if you're interested in it, let us know and we'll see if when we're gonna start it. We didn't decide that yet. Okay. But that's something we're going to be doing, and it'll be part of our regular Sangha practice eventually once we get it in place. But if you're interested in that, let me, Jen, or Ram know, and we'll take it from there. I got to finish a little bit quickly, but I'm gonna read the Metta Sutta, and then we'll be done. So again, take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Peace. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Mary.
Bye.
Thank you all.